Welcome to Daisy Alliance's panel event at the United Nations during the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty 2010 Review Conference. Our panelists, Dr. Michael Yaffee, Dr. Avner Cohen, and Dr. Gawdat Bahgat, will discuss the topic, Getting to a Middle East Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone.
Between 1995 and now, a lot of things have actually changed, I would argue, in the calculation about whether or not this may be the right time to begin to focus on a nuclear weapon-free zone, a weapons of mass destruction-free zone again. The trend in the 90s where more states were signing up in the Middle East to the NPT. So while that was going on, of course, that could make Israel feel quite secure and ask the question, why should it take any other steps? Now we face a different situation. Now we have an Iran that may be on the verge of joining the nuclear club.
Like any human being, Arabs and Iranians cannot live with the idea that only one country in the Middle East, Israel, has the power to have nuclear weapons. Arabs and Iranians accuse United States and other Western powers of double standard.
This exclusivity of an insurance policy is something that is obviously not sustainable. Not sustainable within the context of the Middle East, but even though on the wider context, the philosophy of the disarmament and nonproliferation regime as a whole.
What about starting a discourse of truth? Right now, we do not have a discourse of truth in the Middle East. I'm not even talking about full transparency. I'm talking about straightforward truth. And nobody has the courage, the boldness, the dare to say time has come to unmask this game. Because only once you start to move this opacity, you can talk seriously about how to engage Israel in active issue of arms control in the Middle East in the broader, against the broader political context of the conflict in the Middle East.
All that said, the fundamental debate still remains, which actually caused the end of Acres. We still need to answer the questions. Can a nuclear weapon-free zone negotiation begin independently of peace negotiations? Do you need comprehensive peace between the Arabs and Israelis in order as a necessary prerequisite for negotiation? And then how do you establish those enforcing mechanisms? Or can a nuclear weapon-free zone itself, those negotiations, actually help strengthen the peace process negotiations?
So I see in the discussion of a nuclear weapon-free Middle East the opportunity to get beyond some of the issues that are also complicating other normalizations of relations in the Middle East.
But as a Palestinian living there, that the only weapon would be stronger. It is peace and reconciliation. It is an end to the conflict in the Middle East. An end of the conflict, it has to be within the UN resolutions and rights. It is the occupation has to end. Israel will never feel safe if there's occupation.
But once you don't have monopoly, it's very different stories. I think that the line that led Israel in the 70s to support the vision of nuclear weapons-free zone in the Middle East reflects a genuine, even though not thoroughly debated within Israel, line of thinking that many Israelis, after they would trigger to think about it, would accept, not all of them, but many of them would accept. That is to say that Israelis today prefer truly Middle East that nobody has nuclear weapons. But I think the time has come to start thinking what it's like to have nuclear weapon-free zone, and perhaps as a first step to think about what it's like Middle East, and the first step is without bad technology. That is to say, without enrichment and without reprocessing on all sides, including Israel.
Words do matter. Much as our leaders may say things that we think are primarily meant for our local, domestic audiences, they are read around the world, even more so nowadays, and we must keep that in mind. So they have a bearing on what affects the attitude of other states. And if you cannot accept your neighbor as a fundamental principle, that they are an equal at a negotiation, you will not have a negotiation.
I think the key point to take away from this is that clearly the old strategies on trying to establish a nuclear weapon-free zone in the Middle East have not succeeded. It's really time for the regional parties and even greater, the members of the NPT to really begin to develop a new mindset and try some of these new strategies. Our panelists have mentioned, and also these things have been proposed by civil society, no first use of WMD, nuclear cycle free zone. So I think these are some ideas that are food for thought that should be considered.
Israel, Iran, Arab countries share interest in nuclear weapon free zone because, as we saw in the video, the new threat to the area, to all of them, Arabs, Israelis, Iranians, is WMD at the hands of terrorists, extremists. This is a threat to all people in the region, and this is why all of them should work together. It is not who is the enemy, Israel or Iran. In my opinion, both of them are there to stay. The Middle East does not need enemy.
First of all, people are more dangerous when they're afraid, and there are a lot of misperceptions, and misperceptions are more important than actual facts because people behave according to their misperceptions.
The Middle East is the center of rich culture, rich religion, divine religion. The Jews, the Christianity, the Muslim, they were living side by side peacefully for centuries.
The United States is single-mindedly focused at this review conference on effectively implementing the 1995 resolution on the Middle East. What I didn't hear from my Iranian colleague was an endorsement of that idea. And I'm actually thinking, is Iran even in a position to endorse a nuclear weapon-free zone in the Middle East?
I don't see a great opportunity of Netanyahu and Ahmadinejad sitting together and having a good negotiation. I do see a possibility of rapid progress toward some kind of agreement, convention, framework agreement that would set the stage for a nuclear weapons-free world, at which point I believe it would not be possible for either Israel or Iran to claim that they are entitled to have nuclear weapons.
And I would like to thank everybody, our esteemed panelists, especially Holly Lindamood, who's worked tirelessly for the last 3 months in putting this together, delegates, NGO members, everyone else. Thank you.
I was stunned by the number of people who came. It was a pleasure to see so many people. I mean, there was all sorts of people. It was really a reflection of almost international society here at the UN.
Always is good. I appreciated it. I learned, and I hope they also listen to Iran, because our argument is on the basis of the logic, justice, nothing else.
I thought it was excellent meeting. I got new perspectives, deeper perspectives, more balanced perspectives than I usually do.